okay. I don't know if I'm probably too tall to be in frame here. All right, it's been about 2-ish months, maybe a bit more, since I had the G37 fired up. So I need to do that before I can go to my next track day. First things first, I need to get my oil change done. And after that, I need to do some pads. And oh, my shipment, no, not my address. All right. Well, first things first, I gotta get this big battery in there. Since the cold Colorado weather just eats these batteries, and I've been through 3, I think, since 2020 when I originally bought the car. So I've stored it inside, so I need to get that hooked up first. All right, got the car up on the jack stands now, so it's gonna be time to get the oil change done first with some brand new Motul 300V. I need to get that since the previous Motul oil I was using got up to around 240 to almost 250 degrees on track. So I need to do that, but first, need to remove the bumper and the under tray before I can get access to everything under there. And I'll need to take the wheels off so I can get to the stupid bolts that they have up in the fender. Finally got the bumper off. I mean, I think I've done that a couple hundred times at this point, so that's rather easy, but actually looking at all the damage on my under tray, and definitely bent, scratched up, but this part of the bracket got it the worst. But they're cheap, so I might just replace it at some point. Now, oil change, everything looks okay. I don't have a light, I need a light. Okay, I don't have great lighting, so it's going to be another shot of me just on the ground here when I'm doing the oil change, but I'm going to disconnect the oil cooling lines so that I can drain the cooler, fill it, drain out the lines, but I don't know. It's the first time doing it on the oil, doing an oil change with the oil cooler, so I guess I got to figure it out now. No metal, thank God.
The second part of my 2026 track prep is to reroute the intakes. I highly doubt it, but I did make a video last year on the fabrication of these so-called air boxes to speak, and they've held up fine, but I do think that it is time for an upgrade. Since I wanted to keep this somewhat budget friendly, I decided to cut the cheap intakes that I already had, and then use 2 3/4 inch piping to connect it to the aftermarket 3.5 inch filter.
Alrighty. Let me turn that off. Wait a minute. Did I just... Am I crazy? Ooh. Maybe I do get that. Maybe. All right, I finally got it done. The passenger side intake for the moment, at least. Probably saw a lot of the cutting and other stuff, but finally got it all mostly tightened up. I'm gonna tighten it up later since I might need to take it out again. Not sure though. But cut a lot of the core support around here, but I mean, it's plastic. It's not gonna do much anyway. Just kind of hanging though, not my favorite thing, but it is what it is. So now I need to get to work on the driver side.
Now, I didn't end up recording any audio for this section, so I'll use a voiceover for it. I roughly have a little under half of my blue stuff pads left on the front axle, and in the interest of saving a little bit of money, as always, I bought some cheap pads off eBay to swap in. So when I arrive at my next track day, I can go ahead and swap out the cheap pads for my track pads to try and get them to last a little longer. Little did I know at the time of recording this that I would make a silly mistake in doing so though. Working on the brakes did come with its difficulties since I don't have a dedicated piston compressor. So I used a large C-clamp with a steel fender washer on the front calipers and used a brake pad on the rear calipers. Granted, I was able to compress the passenger rear caliper by hand, so this might end up being the last set of stock size rotors and pads that I use on the rear of the car.
Okay, I'm finally onto the last little bit of prep before my first track day in 2026. So I got the intakes done, the brakes done, the oil change done, and the last thing I need to get done is the suspension. So I got 2 arms from ISR. I got a camber arm and a brand new toe, well, slightly used toe arm that I need to install. Okay. The reason I'm swapping out at least these suspension arms is originally I was going to do just the rear camber arm since I bent them at my last track day, and not on just this side but on both sides. And I don't know how visible it is on camera, but there's a tiny rust spot here where the camber arm was hitting on the sway bar. So these just needed to go, and they have terrible adjustability anyway, so might as well get rid of them. But I saw these toe arms on eBay for a decently cheap price. It's a lot cheaper than what they are brand new. So I decided to pull the trigger on them slightly impulsively, but they should make a nice upgrade along with the camber arms. Now, one of the things that I needed to do before I could fully install these was to make some eccentric bolt lockout plates or delete plates. Now, ISR and a whole bunch of other companies sell them, but they are somewhat expensive. I do believe ISR sells theirs for around $70, and I believe SPL has their own for more because it's SPL. But I ended up going to Home Depot and got some basic steel flat bar, and then just cut those up and drilled holes into them and made them fit on the eccentric bolt, or where the eccentric bolts normally go. Well, I have the camber arms and toe arms loosely in place at the moment, since I still need to pull out the lockout plates to get them painted so that they don't rust. But just by a little eye test, I can tell that the toe arm has a fair bit of toe in on the passenger side, while over on the driver's side there is the tiniest bit of toe out, but it's not a whole bunch, but that toe in on the passenger side is quite bad. Now, obviously, since I do have adjustable arms, I can adjust them.
Okay, I'm going to shut my previous self up because I explained this horribly. I did throw the stock toe buckets back on since I couldn't adjust the aftermarket ones. The trade-off was some toe in on both sides, but it shouldn't be too horrible on track. And not long after, I made it up to High Plains Raceway for the first track day of 26. And everything was going swell until the second session. Now, do you remember earlier in the video when I said that swapping the pads out would lead to a mistake? Well, it's time to air it out. I let the brake fluid level get too low in the reservoir when I put the track pads back in, which caused this horrible vibration when I was trail braking or when I was not under 100% braking force. So I only pushed it in the first 2 sessions of the day, and in the last 2 I ended up going maybe about 70%, 60% on track, but I just gathered some data on temperatures for the transmission and oil. But thankfully, I had already booked my next track date at PPIR for a Track Night in America event. And to say it went better would be a very small understatement. After the track day at High Plains, I did end up going back and bleeding the brakes and found some air in the rear right caliper, which was most likely the cause of the vibration issue. And thankfully, that issue didn't rear its head at this track day.
Oh, it feels good to have the fucking paddle shifters, finally.
The only issue I had was the $150 steering wheel column trim that I just recently bought came into contact with my paddle shifters, which rendered them useless for the first 2 sessions. But I was able to remove them before the 3rd session. Now this event felt great because the car seemed like it was punching well above its weight and my preconceived expectations. As always, the G was the heaviest car on track by at least 100 to 200 pounds, but it definitely didn't act like it was that heavy. Now this part of the video might come across somewhat narcissistic, and I also do realize that I was probably one of the few cars on the track with track pads and brake fluid. But I must say it was very amusing to eat up cars like Miatas and a 996 Carrera under braking, and to keep up in the infield section. To end off the video, I'll throw my fastest lap around PPR up on screen, and I also have a few videos coming out soon, so hit that subscribe button if you want to see those. And also, if you want to see some dumb stuff that I make on Instagram, go and follow me at Maury_G37X.
Yes.